During the centuries when the English language was developing, an era known as the Dark Ages, the Catholic Church held a large amount of power in Europe, even over kings and queens of entire countries. The Catholic Church was so powerful that whenever a king or queen was crowned, it was the Pope who placed the crown on his or her head, symbolizing the Pope's approval of this appointment to power. During the Dark Ages, few people knew how to read Greek, and even fewer people knew how to read Hebrew. This ability was generally confined to the wealthy and well-educated. The common people, for the most part, spoke Latin. Consequently, the Catholic Church created their own Latin version of the Bible, known as the Latin Vulgate. The Catholic Church then used the Latin Vulgate to convince people that they needed to pay money in order to be forgiven for their sins. This was a practice known as selling indulgences. A man named Erasmus, who was able to read the original Greek manuscripts, saw what the Catholic Church was doing, and in 1516 he compiled several of the original Greek manuscripts and published an accurate Greek New Testament, known as the Textus Receptus. Erasmus then took the Greek and placed it side by side with the Catholic Church's Latin. This allowed the common people to see how they had been deceived. As a result, money stopped flowing to Rome, and Michelangelo was eventually forced to stop painting the Sistine Chapel for a time due to lack of funding. Since English was becoming the most common language in England, the people of England desired a Bible written in English. The Catholic Church, however, had placed the death penalty on anyone trying to translate the Scripture into English. In spite of this prohibition, in 1522, a man named William Tyndale attempted to translate the Greek New Testament into modern English. Soon after, however, he was arrested for his efforts and burned at the stake. His last words before he died were, "Lord, open the King of England's eyes." 3 years later, in 1539, the King of England, named King Henry VIII, legalized the translation of Scripture into English. After King Henry VIII's death, several kings and queens came into power in England. Some helped forward the cause of translating the Scripture into English, and some fought against it. You may have heard of Queen Mary I, also known as Bloody Mary, who reenacted the laws against translating Scripture into English. She's the one who burned 300 Christians at the stake. During this time, various attempts at translating the Hebrew and Greek into English were made. These attempts included the Great Bible, the Bishop's Bible, the Geneva Bible, and the Matthew's Bible. These translations, while not poor, had errors and inconsistencies, and left the people of England desirous of a translation they could fully trust. In 1604, King James I, moved by popular opinion, authorized a new translation to underway. This translation was intended to be the final attempt at translating the Hebrew and Greek into English. 54 of the greatest scholars at that time were gathered together to work on the project. Each of these scholars was fluent in many different languages, including Hebrew and Greek. These scholars were then broken up into 6 groups and assigned a certain portion of Scripture to translate. They were given 2 rules. The Old Testament had to be translated directly from the original Hebrew, and the New Testament had to be translated directly from the original Greek. The leaders of these 6 groups then came together and arrived at the final conclusion for each word to be written in the King James Bible. Their work was completed in 1610 and published in 1611. It was sold in a handheld version that same year, and it was the Bible used by the vast majority of Christians for the next 3 centuries.
The official Roman Catholic and Holy Roman Empire abhorrence for Bibles translated in the vernacular can be seen from the following historic quotes. John weakly translated the Gospel from Latin into the English, made it the property of the masses and common to all, and even to women, and so the pearl of the Gospel is thrown before swine and trodden, underfoot, and what it meant to be the jewel of the clergy has been turned into the juice of the laity has become common. That pestilent and most wretched John Wycliffe of damnable memory, a child of the old devil, and himself a child and pupil of the Antichrist, crowned his wickedness by translating the scriptures in the mother tongue. A synod of clergy in 1408 decreed, "It is dangerous to translate the text of Holy Scriptures from one language into another. We decree and ordain that no one shall in future translate on his authority any text of Scriptures into the English tongue or into any other tongue, by way of booklet authorities. Nor shall any man read in public or in private this kind of booklet authorities, now recently composed in the time of the said John Wycliffe, under penalty of the great excommunication." Because of these decrees, on one day in 1519, 6 men and a woman in Coventry were burned alive for teaching their children the Lord's Prayer, the Ten Commandments, and the Apostles' Creed in English.